All right, welcome back to the weekly fantasy basketball Q&A over here at Rotoworld. I am once again Noah Rubin, joined by Adam King from Fantasy Basketball International and multiple other sites. I guess you're kind of writing for a lot of different people. So, we're back again on Tuesdays, and obviously nothing has really happened outside of the All-Star game, which we actually did an episode on your podcast yesterday where we ended up spending a little bit more time than I think we planned talking about the All-Star game, what was annoying about it, ways to fix it. That, I think we kind of have that conversation every single year, and then the next year we just get disappointed again. But maybe with the way Adam Silver seemed after the game ended, maybe we'll actually get changes next season, and it won't just be the same old, for lack of a better word, crap. And it'll be more exciting again. But Kingy, how are you doing today? And if you have any All-Star game thoughts that you want to share, please do.
I'm well. Yep, it's Wednesday over here, so that's my work from home day, which is always exciting for me. I don't have to get dressed up and head into the office. So, we touched on it yesterday, but it's I don't watch the All-Star game. I do watch some of the Saturday night stuff. I don't think that's going anywhere just because of nostalgia and what people remember. The kids enjoy it. But in terms of the game, I don't know. I don't really see a point in playing it because the players don't care. They're not out there to try. We came up with a couple of ideas yesterday, but I don't know, other than a financial incentive, like we touched on, maybe $1 million per player, but then you'd have to come up with a way to reduce those rosters or reduce whoever is winning the money. We'll see. We'll see. I do know, another reason, obviously, and a lot of what the NBA does is based around money, like making money. So, and as with any business, and I'm not over there, obviously, but I was in Indiana a few months ago at the start of the season, and even then the hype for the All-Star game was big. So I can imagine that the money it brought in for Indiana, for the NBA, far outweighs them caring whether the players actually want to play properly or not. So, and that court looked cool, the LED court with all although I was surprised when they did the 3-point shootout, they left it green. You could see it reflecting onto the players' faces. For me, they're professionals, obviously. They're far more attuned at adjusting and things like that. But that would just be distracting for me, having this green court glaring up in your face. So, I don't know. I thought they would turn that off during the actual competition, but I guess not. I was wrong.
Yeah, it's all for the theatrics. I think a lot of the players were very clear about not really caring either. There was also, I saw reports of players being interested in compensation for the All-Star game. And, obviously if there is money involved, then we'll see kind of what happened with the in-season tournament where they were offered, I think it was like $500,000 per player for winning, which that motivated a lot of players. And I'm sure the same thing would happen with the All-Star game. But at the same time, like you said, like the NBA doesn't really, they care, but they're still making a good bit of money. The local market that hosts it makes a ton of money every year. So we'll see if changes actually happen. But since that's probably the only other thing that really happened, we already have a handful of questions here. We'll just go ahead and get into those. With the first one coming from Rizzy McGuire. Should I trade Tyrese Maxson for Amen Thompson in category Dynasty leagues? Just for reference, I have Maxey 21st, and I have Amen Thompson 39th. So I would say no to this trade. I would prefer to have Maxey unless you're going through some 4-year rebuild and you're okay with taking Amen Thompson in the hopes that in about, probably less than 4 seasons, but within 4 seasons, he'll be one of the best players in fantasy. Whereas Maxey, he's not old, obviously. He's 23, so he'd be 27 around that time. So he'd be in the middle of his prime, but he'd be wasting some of his prime years with a rebuilding team. I think it would make sense to do Maxey for Amen and pieces if you are ready to totally rebuild. But since Maxey's so young, maybe that doesn't make much sense. I don't know. What do you think, Kingy?
Yeah, you're the Dynasty guy, but for me, the age difference isn't significant enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the moment for the difference and potentially what the difference could be for the next couple of years, I would probably hold on to Maxi. If he was 26 or something, then yeah, I'd probably consider it. But as you said, he's only 23. So, yeah, I think I'd probably still hold on to Maxi unless you're tearing it down and, yeah, looking at a
Yeah.
rebuild.
And Ahmed's 21, so it really isn't that much of an age difference, which is kind of because even though he's a rookie, and if he was one of those like still 19-year-olds or 20-year-olds, but I mean, what difference does a year make? But it is only a 2-year difference there, so just some things to consider. But yeah, 1-for-1 would definitely prefer Maxi. Picked up Andre Drummond because he's being featured along with Vooch versus bigger lineups. Any idea what teams the Bulls may do this against besides the Cavs? I believe they already did it against Minnesota, and those are probably the only two teams that I can think of off the top of my head that have kind of those two big starting lineups that would work against, that they would try that against. So I think the idea of picking up Andre Drummond for, potentially, I don't know how many more games they have against Minnesota and Cleveland, but they've already played Minnesota at least once off the top of my head that I know of. And I know they've played Cleveland, so could only be a couple games where that would work left, and that's if they go back to that for sure next time. So,
yeah, I'm just going through. One name that comes to mind is potentially Utah.
okay, yeah.
They would be another obvious one for me. Depending on injuries and when they play them, I haven't looked at schedule. The Knicks at the moment because they're playing Hartenstein and Achua starting. So maybe if they play them before Randall comes back, yeah, that's probably it. I think the Bucks, I suppose, if you like Giannis doesn't play necessarily like a big, but other than his rebound numbers, but he's sizable. So against him and Lopez, maybe they roll out. So there's maybe a couple of teams, but yeah, certainly not the majority. It's the minority when you look at the amount of teams. It's maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah, and looking at their schedule, they do play Cleveland. I think their 4th game back after the All-Star break, and then the Bucks, the 5th game back. Quickly looking through, they do play Minnesota again after that.
Okay.
But yeah, so not a ton of value there. I don't even think that they play Utah against. They may have already played them twice. So, yeah, I think Drummond saw his value when Vooch is out of the lineup, and then he'll have some games where he's a good rebounder, even coming off the bench, just because he is a really, really good rebounder. But that kind of the idea of relying on him to be a starter, I don't think that happens enough for the rest of the season, barring an injury to Vooch.
Yep. No, I think he's fine to stream in, and if all you need is rebounds and some defensive stuff, he's not even that efficient all the time, but generally he's pretty efficient. Then you could hold him and just really cash in on those high volume games. But yeah, there's not going to be many.
All right, Couch Ad, friend of the show. He is here often. As of right now, I have Colin Sexton, OG Anunoby, Desmond Bane, Herb Jones, DeAndre Ayton, and Onyeka Okongwu for my 5th and final keeper slot, with Walker Kessler, Nikola Jokic, Cade Cunningham, and Pascal Siakam already locked in. How would you rank them? To me, this is Desmond Bane 1 pretty easily, then OG, then maybe. Oh, if you just I'll say mine, and then I do want to hear yours.
Yeah.
Bane, OG. I may even go Okongwu over Ayton, and then just because with the idea that Atlanta finally moves on from Clint Capella this summer, but who knows if that could easily change. And I'm just not a huge Ayton fan. And then I think Colin Sexton. I think Herb Jones and then Colin Sexton. That one's kind of close, but I don't think it really matters for that 5th. And the last keeper slot should be Desmond Bane pretty much no matter what to me.
Yeah, but so Bane is number 1 for me reasonably. Well, at the moment, he's probably a clear number 1. Number 2 would be, yeah, that's why I hesitated. It's probably OG, but it could be Onyeka. I think if if Capella is moved or whatever, or Onyeka starts after the break and he's playing 28, 30 minutes, he might be ahead of Anunoby. But they would definitely be the next two. It would just, right now, it's probably OG, but that could change. Next would be probably Ayton. I mean, I'm about as low on Ayton as anyone. But I think I'd have him ahead of Sexton and Herb Jones. In terms of the last one, I don't know. I think Herb Jones is going to end up being one of those guys who's much better in real life than fantasy. Because having watched him play live, he is very impactful, but it doesn't translate to fantasy when they're healthy. Whereas Sexton has a fantasy-friendly game because he relies on points and threes and some assists, and so it's potentially Sexton over Herb just for that reason.
And Herb is still, I mean, Basketball Monster has him 75th over the course of the season. A lot of that does come from 1.2 steals per game this season, which is actually down from past seasons. 0.8 blocks, which I think has gone down recently, but he got off to like a really good start with that because his value was really high early in the season.
Yeah.
And then 1.4 threes. Last year was his career high, 0.8. So he's kind of that, steal 3 block 3 and D traditional kind of stat set, but not a ton in other places. And it's much better in real life than fantasy for sure. But Bane, even though he's injured could be the rest of the season, but a lot of time already and probably the rest of the season, I would still keep him going into next season.
Yeah, I think he's. I mean, how old is he? 24, something like that. He's not that old.
I think he was a 4-year college guy, so like 24, 25.
So he might be a little bit older. Yeah.
All right, another one from Rizzy. Will Darius Bazley make an impact in Philly? Maybe. I don't know that he gets enough minutes if he was, he wasn't on a team. Like, obviously, in the past, he has been able to, I think, show some fantasy flashes, but I just don't know what his role looks like. And if I'm not mistaken, it's just a 10-day contract. So they may just throw him out there, see what he can do, and then, hey, if he plays well, earns minutes. If not, okay, cool, you're gone in a week and a half anyway. But I don't know. I wouldn't be looking to add him at this point, as I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, it'd have to be a pretty deep league. They're going to get most of their guys back coming off the break. Batum, Tobias Harris, Kyle Lowry are all probable. Melton's close. He's only questionable, and I don't know. I mean, the fact that Melton is still questionable is a little bit concerning because he's sort of been on that cusp of returning, feels like for a month now. So it's obviously an injury that they're just having trouble managing. So that does concern me a little bit, although it's a bit of a tangent. Look, maybe they give him some minutes just to see how he fits. Rob Covington is still out for a little bit. So, but as I said, it would have to be a deep league because they've also got Kenyon Martin there. Kelly Oubre is there soaking up a lot of minutes. Mo Bamba playing the backup behind Paul Reed. So, it would have to be a pretty deep league or a big blowout for him to play more than about 10 to 15 minutes, I think.
And just looking at his past seasons, his only top 200 season really was the 2021-2022 season, which was his last one with the Thunder. He played 27.9 minutes per game, averaged 10.8 points, 6.3 rebounds, 1.4 assists, 0.8 steals, a block, 1.2 threes, shot 42.3% from the floor and 68.8% from the line. So really he has that kind of same upside that Herb Jones has in the sense that he could get you a 3, a steal, and a block per game. But the lack of efficiency with his shooting and not really giving you much elsewhere. And plus he needed almost 30 minutes a game to do that. And I don't see him getting that large of a role with any sort of consistency for Philly. Could be totally wrong. Maybe he comes in and plays incredibly well and they just force feed him minutes until Embiid gets back. It's possible, but I think that's a pretty unlikely scenario.
Yeah, and I think it depends on how they want to use him as well, because they maybe they've brought him in to play some backup center, and that is different because then he wouldn't necessarily be up against those power forward eligible guys. It's maybe they just want to see what he looks like ahead of Mo Bamba. So I mean that's possible as well.
Yep. All right, next one. 9-cat, 16-team league. De'Aaron Fox and Derek Lively or Devin Booker. So obviously Book is the best player in this trade. De'Aaron Fox is still having, I guess like a different season. I don't want to call it like an elite season because it's pretty similar value to last season, but more threes and lower shooting percentages. But is Derek Lively enough to make up the difference between Fox and Book for you in a 16-team league?
I think I'd go with Booker. I know obviously with the 16-team depth is important. So getting to, well, Fox is top 50. Lively, I don't know. The Gafford thing worries me a little bit. We just don't know what Lively's role is going to be rest of season. He might only play 20 minutes a night rest of the season, and that's not enough for him to be fantasy. 16-team, he's probably still relevant, but just that uncertainty there would probably make me lean Devin Booker.
Yeah, I think if it was Derek Lively before Daniel Gafford, then I think it would be a trade I would definitely do, even though in 16-team I might look for a little bit more depth. But given what Booker has been this season and Lively potentially coming up. So he came off the bench in their one game that he played alongside Gafford, played 17 minutes in a blowout. Gafford played 23 and Dwight Powell played 8. Lively had 8 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 blocks. So is he going to keep getting 4 blocks per game in 15 minutes? Probably not. If he's doing that, then great. But I think, like with Gafford there, it's hard to imagine him playing 25 minutes consistently. And it might be kind of more in that 15 to 20 range. So I think it does. Yeah, I think I would go Booker here.
Yeah.
All right. Is it a good time to trade Josh Hart since OG is close to being back? Josh Hart has been starting in place of, I guess OG and Randall kind of went down at the same time, but what do you think? Is this a good time to trade Josh Hart, assuming that you're able to get pretty decent value for him and you're not selling incredibly low?
Yeah, I think if you can get value back in a trade, it's probably worth considering. Chances are you picked him up off waivers or got him for nothing, so you don't have anything invested in him in terms of draft stock. But yeah, OG is close. Before his injury, OG was playing really well, and Hart was a drop. So he is probably going to go back to being more of a fringe stream guy if I need rebounds. If you could trade him for a top, I don't even know what he's been. I've got him in a couple of teams, and he's been, other than his last game, I feel like he had a bad game in the last game. But before that, he'd been really good. I think he had a triple-double. If you could get a top 70 player, top 80 player for him, then I'd definitely do it. But if the best you're getting back is a top 120, then I'd probably just hold him.
Yeah, and I was just scrolling through Twitter to kind of see about when Anunoby would be back, and there's a quote from Fred Katz of The Athletic when he was on his podcast talking about the Knicks. He's a beat reporter for the Knicks. Anunoby is supposed to get reevaluated sometime around March 1st. And then the expectation is that he's not going to be it's not going to be much longer after that. So they play 5 more games before March 1st. And then their next game after that is March 3rd and March 5th. So maybe sometime around then, March 3rd, March 5th, March 8th, Anunoby will be back, but we'll have to wait and see about more updates. But that's at least 5 more games of Josh Hart as a starter. So yeah, I mean, maybe you can sell somebody on the idea that, hey, Josh Hart is going to be starting. So it's not like you're just trying to sell him off and then, OG Anunoby comes back. Nobody's going to really, I guess, for lack of a better term, fall for that. So yeah, I'd say it probably is a pretty decent time to try and trade him because, when OG's back, Josh Hart's going to be a very solid player for them, but the fantasy production probably won't be there.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Ayton? Is he a possible shutdown? are we the two people to give our thoughts on DeAndre Ayton? I don't know. But what do you kind of think on, I guess, the idea of him being shut down as opposed to just your general thoughts on DeAndre Ayton?
Yeah, I don't need to give my general thoughts. Is he a shutdown? Yeah, I think he will be. I think there'll come a point sooner rather than later where whether it's an injury or I don't know, maybe he just stops turning up to practice or something. But yeah, I feel like there'll be. We talked about this on my show yesterday that they've just invested 3 years into Duop Reith as well. So I think they probably want to see, like, pump some minutes into him and see how he fits. So yes, I do think that Ayton down the stretch will be, if you want to call it shut down or injured. I mean, the whole season he's been dealing with tendonitis kind of things in his knee, and they're basically laying the platform for this end of season shutdown, like they have done for the last 2 or 3 years in Portland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think maybe if he was a young guy with a lot to prove, then maybe he would keep playing. But he's a max player, and he doesn't really have to prove anything to anybody else. So, yeah, I'd say he's definitely a shutdown candidate at this point. And yeah, Duop Reith is definitely a guy that I would imagine has a chance to start or at least see big minutes down the stretch. Jabari Walker is another guy, so they have some guys to cycle through. I was offered Rudy Gobert, Isaiah Hartenstein, and Bogdan Bogdanovic, maybe Bojan Bogdanovic for LeBron and Nurk. Am I giving up too much in a 10-team 9-cat head-to-head? What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, it depends a little bit which Bogdanovic it is.
Yeah.
If it's Bogdan, that he's a better option than Bojan. Am I giving up too much? No, LeBron's the interesting one there for me. I'm not a massive LeBron guy, just in terms of fantasy this season. I wonder, he's missing games occasionally. I think in terms of pure value, you probably are. Just if you look at per game value, I think LeBron is the best player there quite comfortably. And Nurkic, he's been up and down, but he's been pretty good. I'd sort of have Nurkic. I'd probably have Gobert and Hartenstein's an interesting one. I don't know. I think it's fair. I think it's an okay trade. Like I think both sides could walk away from this feeling pretty good. Because obviously if you're getting Gobert and Hartenstein, that really, really firms up your rebounds, defensive stuff, field goal percentage. And if it's Bogdanovic, he's been good this season. Like I think you get some points and threes. He sort of negates that free throw issue with Gobert. So yeah, I think this is certainly a fair trade. Am I giving up too much? Maybe on the surface, but if LeBron misses a week in 3 weeks' time, and that's the first week of your fantasy playoffs, then you're probably not giving up too much.
Yeah, I guess the injuries for LeBron and him being questionable ahead of every single game is something that is to be considered. I think if it's Bojan, then you're definitely not getting enough back. I think the other factor here is that this is a 10-team league, so maybe you value the stars a little bit more than the depth.
Yeah.
In which case it would give you a little bit of an edge to having LeBron as opposed to taking on, just the extra center there. Obviously, Bogdanovic has been much better than Bojan, which I think maybe makes this a little bit more, I guess, even just value-wise. But I think with it being a 10-team league, I'd lean towards having LeBron on the team as opposed to some of these other depth pieces.
For me, it probably depends a little bit as well where you drafted LeBron. Mm-hmm. Like if he was your second round pick, then you're giving up a second round pick. But if people slept on him and they avoided him because of injuries, and you were able to get him in the 30s or something, so maybe you got him in the 4th round of a 10-team league, then you've probably got some pretty solid top end talent, and so. Mm-hmm. Giving up on someone like LeBron isn't as impactful as if he's your second best player.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Should I trade Luka for Wemby? 10-team 9-cat head-to-head because Luka has the 2-game week in the second round of the playoffs. That they're having the conversation. That's interesting.
Oh, it's definitely a conversation. Talked about this on how high I am on Wemby for next year. I've said I would potentially take him number one. For the rest of this season, you talked about this yesterday when we were talking about teams and shutting down and resting players. And while we do think that the Spurs will do that, we don't think it's going to be a case of you guys are just going to sit the final 2 weeks of the season. It'll be more of a you sit this game, play this game, much like they did last season. So in terms of games played rest of season, they're probably pretty close. And if that's the case, if you're confident that they'll both play a similar amount of games, then you just have to look at what stats you need. Because I think they're pretty close in terms of if you look at pure just rank or value. But obviously, Luka is going to get you those assists, out of position rebounds, points, threes. Free throws have been all right. And whereas Wemby is going to get you rebounds, blocks, not field goal percentage, but some assists. So, I don't know. If you need those blocks, then certainly Wemby. Luka is probably going to give you consistently. I mean, he's leading the league in scoring. Is that right?
I think he is because Embiid doesn't qualify. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, okay. So he's at like 34, I think, points a game or something like that, Luka. So, that's obviously a huge difference in fantasy. Someone getting 34 points as opposed to someone like Wemby who's getting you closer to 20, 22. So, if you need what Wemby is bringing you, and trust me, he is fun to have on your roster. Some of those stat lines are pretty mind-blowing. Luka is probably a little bit safer.
Yeah, and just looking, I guess, for the rest of the schedule, Dallas, so they have 2 more games this week, and then they play 4-3-4-2, which would be that second round of the playoffs, and then for this league, and then 4. Whereas the Spurs play 3 more games this week and then 3-3-4-3-4. So, I mean, Wemby will have an extra game during that second round of the playoffs. So, yeah.
But I think you have to factor in, like, I know a lot of people talk about this 2-game playoff week, and I know it's a thing. Like, it is certainly something we need to consider. But by this time of the year, we're at the back end of the season. So even teams that have 3 or 4 games, there's a chance a guy is rested or plays limited minutes. 2 games of Luka is still pretty good. Like it could be 70 points, 30 assists, 25 rebounds, 5 steals, 10 threes. That's still pretty good. Like it's only 2 games, but I don't know who those 2 games are against in that week, but
does it matter?
Well, Luka, I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, obviously,
I guess if it's a bad team, maybe he gets benched early.
Yeah, that's right. Whereas if it's a competitive team, where are they in the standings? Are they pushing for every win possible, or are they able to give him a couple of nights off down the stretch? So you got to factor in a lot of things. Obviously, the 2-game week it exists. It's a thing to worry about, but 2 games of Luka is probably better than 3 games of 90% of the league. Yeah,
no, that's very true. I mean, you mentioned it could be 70 points and 30, or we'll keep it semi-realistic. I guess 70 points, like 20, 25 assists if he has really good games.
Yeah.
And I mean, but like he could have like a 15 assist game in there as well. Like, is Wemby going to get you 70 points in 3 games? Like maybe. Is he going to get you 20, 25 assists? Probably not. So yeah, I think it really does depend on the categories because 3 games of Wemby could also be 15 blocks. So
yes, it could be 30 blocks.
Yeah, it's not impossible. So thoughts on Ben Simmons for the rest of the season under the new coach in a 10-team 9-cat head-to-head league. I honestly don't think that having Kevin Ollie as the head coach as opposed to Jack Vaughn is going to change much because it is entirely based on his availability. The minutes were based on a minutes restriction, not Vaughn not liking him that much. So the Ben Simmons thoughts is entirely, is he going to be healthy, in my opinion?
Yeah. I mean, thoughts on Ben Simmons? Look, I think he's probably worth rostering, but I'm not sure the new coach impacts anything significantly. They're still going to be managing him. Dayron Sharp is healthy now, so maybe that means Simmons doesn't play as much as the backup center. So I think he's worth rostering, although in a 10-team league, maybe he's not. Because you basically, if you're in a 10-team league, you're looking at anyone outside the top 80, top 90, maybe top 100. He's probably expendable, and he's not going to be a top 100 player. At least if you factor in total value, you stream him in if he's going to play. Maybe you stream him in, but then if he's going to be rested, just drop him. Someone else will likely pick him up for that next game that he's available, but then they'll drop him again. So, yeah, I don't think he's someone you need to be holding as a consistent piece of your rotation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Should I trade Trey Mann for Kelly Olynyk in this same league that was the 10-team 9-cat head-to-head? We're just talking about trading Luka for Wemby. And I believe because it's also here, Charlotte is the other team with a 2-game week, so Trey Mann would only get 2 games. So I guess the idea is Trey Mann significantly better or better enough in comparison to Kelly Olynyk that he'd be worth the 2-game week as opposed to 3 games of Olynyk, and for like the production outside of that. What do you think? Who'd you take?
I think Mann is certainly the better option here. Just given what we've seen his role so far. The LaMelo is the question mark here. If LaMelo comes back, then it cuts into Mann's minutes, his production. I think he's still someone that could be rostered, but he's not going to be doing what he's done the last week or so. So trade Mann to get Olynyk. I don't know. I'm not sure in a 10-team league that either of these guys are must roster players. Olynyk what did he play, 20 and 22 minutes or something? We have no idea what Toronto are doing. I don't think Toronto knows what Toronto's doing. So is he going to be phased out as a veteran piece that they don't see long-term contributing, or are they going to potentially run him out there, give him minutes to try and trade him and get something back at some point? We just don't know. So I think it's fine if you want to do it, but I do think that until we get word on LaMelo, Mann is probably a must roster player in a 10-team league, whereas Olynyk is not.
Yeah, that's the way I'd look at it as well, because even if LaMelo returns, like, which isn't a guarantee, is, at this point, the second round of the playoffs, which is the March 18th through 24th week, is LaMelo shut down for the season at that point. I mean, there would be 3 weeks after that, I think, remaining in the season. So could LaMelo be kind of managed at that point again, considering he's already missed a good portion of the season?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Mann being a guy that you should roster for sure in a 10-team league, whereas Olynyk is probably a fringe 12-team guy. That it makes up for Olynyk playing 3 games that week as opposed to Trey Mann only playing 2.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Jaren Jackson Jr. defying the odds and playing out the season? That's a great way to put it, defying the odds. Offered Garland, or have been offered Garland for him in a 9-cat head-to-head Dynasty, and aiming to win now. That's a tough one because it's hard to say. I really don't know if Jaren Jackson's going to keep playing, because I think he's only missed like 2 games recently, 3 games in the past, in like February, and then he missed like 2 before that. So I think it's something that we kind of have to wait and see the first couple of weeks after, like when we get back from the All-Star break, because if he's already starting to miss games, then the odds are probably pretty low. But even if he doesn't, like, I don't know, I don't feel great about it. And even though Garland hasn't been great so far this season, I don't know, it doesn't feel like a good situation either way for me for what the rest of the season looks like between these two.
Yeah, it's I guess if you're looking at the dynasty aspect of this question, who would you rather in dynasty? Again, I'm not the dynasty guy. I think they're probably pretty close in dynasty.
I have Garland 25 and Jaren Jackson 27.
Okay, so not really much of a difference there. Yeah. So you can sort of, I don't know, deem that a wash. It doesn't matter who you have long term, you're going to get similar value. So if you're looking at rest of this season, I don't think JJJ plays out the season. That's just based on what we've seen from Memphis. There's just no reason at all for them to play him beyond another 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So I certainly think Garland will play more.
Yeah.
But JJJ, when he's on the court, could do more because Memphis are running out of G League squad. So if you're looking at per game, it's JJJ. But if you're looking at a long-term kind of overall value here, I think Garland, who hasn't been great, mind you, he is starting to look a little bit better. Over the last couple of games before the All-Star break, he was giving you what you sort of want, like closer to 20 points and 7 assists with 1 to 1.5 steals and a couple of threes.
Yeah, I think it is like, because if Jaren Jackson Jr. does play, like, he hasn't been the same shot blocker this season that he has been in the past. And I think him taking on a larger scoring role with John Morant and Desmond Bane out has forced him to have to, I guess, sacrifice a little bit on defense. He can't be quite as aggressive. He can't get in as much foul trouble because if he isn't on the court, then they have, like, they're not going to win. So I think I do like the idea, because Garland did miss a ton of time. So it's easy to see. I could easily see him coming back from the All-Star break after getting a nice rest and being back to being the player that we know he can be and that he has been the past 2 seasons. So yeah, I think unless you really need Jaren Jackson Jr.'s categories that he provides better value in than Darius Garland for your team, I think doing this move for Garland probably makes a little bit of sense, because also you could look at it where Garland does have a little bit more upside, in my opinion, because we've seen him play incredibly well and then be a little limited once they added Donovan Mitchell. But at some point, I mean, rumors are flying, and how much legitimacy is there to everybody saying, oh, what's going on in Cleveland? And they've just won, goodness, how many games with one loss in between? I don't remember the exact number, but really weren't losing many games. And people were questioning, oh, is Donovan Mitchell going to stay? Oh, he's definitely going to leave. So assuming eventually Donovan Mitchell leaves, whether it's, oh, definitely the end of the season, or, hey, his contract expires in a couple of seasons, or I actually don't know his contract off the top of my head. So whenever, he has the opportunity to leave, does that happen? I would assume eventually Darius Garland is the primary point guard without Donovan Mitchell here in Cleveland. That could be years down the road, though. But as he continues to develop, there could come a point where Darius Garland is just straight up better than Donovan Mitchell. It might take a few seasons. So whereas Jaren Jackson, I don't know how much room he has for growth in fantasy, because I don't think he's going to be better than what he already has been as a shot blocker. So yeah, I don't know. I would prefer to have Garland here long-term and then win now. I think unless you just have, for some reason, a lot of confidence in Jaren Jackson is going to be able to play the rest of the season, I think I'd lean Garland.
Yeah, I think so. I've just pulled up Donovan Mitchell's contract. So he's contracted through, 2 more seasons beyond this one.
Okay.
But the 5th season, the 25-26 season, is a player option for just over $37 million. So given how old is Donovan Mitchell? I don't know how old he is.
I want to guess 26.
27. Yeah. Oh, here we go. 27.
27.
So he's 27. So
Yeah.
he's going to be 27, 28. So he's going to be 29, 30. So there is a chance he opts out of that player option to get a longer term deal, to sign a 4 or a 5 year deal somewhere. So at the moment, there's no pressure to trade him because he can't walk yet or anything like that. So yeah, I don't know what he's going to do. But yes, there is a chance that Garland at some point becomes a better fantasy player than Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah. All right, rest of the season, Kevin Huerter or Max Strus, 9-cat head-to-head, 12-team league. What do you think?
I don't know. Neither. Is that an option? Probably Huerter, I think, but this could change from week to week. Strus, we know he started the season really well, so he could go through another stretch here of top 80 value. Huerter does the same, though. When his shot's falling, they'll pump minutes into him, but then as soon as he starts missing, they'll just roll with Malik Monk. So I think Strus, I feel like his role is a little more secure, so he'll just get opportunity to do it, whereas Huerter, he's starting, but they're fine playing him 20 minutes. So I don't know, maybe Strus is a little bit safer, but I don't think either of them are anything other than top 100, 120.
Yeah, season long, Huerter is 140th on Basketball Monster, and Strus is 116. Strus has seen more minutes consistently, and I think maybe that kind of gives him the edge, but
yeah,
neither of them are like great unless you just really need threes and you can deal with some average games from time to time for the one game that he goes off for like 7 threes.
Yeah.
LeBron or De'Aaron Fox for the rest of this season. This is from the 10-team 9-cat head-to-head guy, so we'll go with that, a head-to-head league. Or excuse me, a 9-cat league. We'll say that.
Yeah. Per game, I think it's LeBron. I think he's still the better per game player here. Again, it depends how much you want to factor in the potential missed games for LeBron. Is he going to sit? The Lakers aren't really in a position where they have the luxury to just go, here, you can sit out a week. So I don't think, other than him getting an injury, which of course that could happen, I don't think he's going to miss significant time. But Fox doesn't really miss time at all unless he's injured. So I think Fox is probably a little bit safer if you're just looking for someone who's on the court every night. But LeBron still has that per game upside.
Yeah. It is kind of what you're looking for. I mean, Fox has been a little bit better as a scorer, as a shooter this season. LeBron averages more rebounds, assists. Fox has the edge in steals. LeBron has the edge in field goal percentage, and both of them are bad free throw shooters. So I'd probably lean LeBron, but if we start getting into, him missing games a bunch like he has in the past, as opposed to what has been the case for the majority of this season, then yeah, it ends up being Fox. But I guess I don't know, might go big or go home and just go with LeBron there. So
yeah.
Would you drop Gafford or Vince Williams for any Jazz guards in a 10-team 9-cat league? I wouldn't drop Gafford for sure. Would I drop Vince Williams for any Jazz guards? I don't. I guess with the idea that Vince Williams may miss a lot of games for the rest of the season, I may. But actually, I don't think I will. I think I'd rather stick it out with Vince Williams at least for a little bit longer. Try and see what the Jazz guards look like. I was trying to combine that into one word. See what that looks like as far as how the minutes go for the next week or so after the All-Star break, and see what kind of production they kind of have before I would maybe go Keontae George.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't. Vince Williams has been top 50 over the last month, something like that. He's been good, really good. And I know the Grizzlies are going to rest players. They're going to bench guys. I'm not sure Vince falls into that category. I think he'll miss the odd game, but I don't think they're just going to pull him out of the rotation and play guys over him. So And Gafford, obviously, much like with Derek Lively, we don't know his exact role and what the minutes are going to look like when we're back. But I still think he'll be pretty comfortably top 80, top 70, just with his blocks, rebounds, field goal percentage. So Keontae George is obviously, or Sexton, they're probably the two you're looking at. Maybe Clarkson. But yeah, I would only be looking at Sexton if you need points, because that's what he does, points and threes and some assists. Keontae George is still, I know he's coming off a really good game, but he's going to be up and down. He's a rookie. So, yeah, I don't think I would.
Yeah, and with Gafford in his 3 games, one of those with Lively since he joined Dallas, 21.4 minutes per game, with one of those coming off the bench where he played 17 minutes. He's averaging 15 points, 12 boards, 2.3 blocks, shooting 61.3% from the floor. Obviously, the free throws are bad. He's not giving you threes. The assists aren't there. The steals, he's averaging 1 per game this season. So, I mean, I think he can continue to do solid points, average points, but mostly rebounds, blocks, and a high field goal percentage, those traditional center stats. I mean, that's what has him as a 3rd rounder over the course of the season, is those inflated center stats. So I'm not saying he is a top 40 player in fantasy basketball, but his 9 cap value is that good. And so I think he's too good to drop.
Yeah.
All right, got another keeper one. Maxey versus Amin Thompson versus OO versus Miles Turner. Oh gosh, I would definitely keep Maxey here. I think I was trying to decide which one I would drop, but if it's those 4 are locked in and you're choosing one of these 4, I would easily choose Maxey.
Yep, I agree.
And then after that, I think it kind of depends on where your team is at. But with Giannis, Cade, Siakam, Mitch, I'm assuming that it's fairly win now. Not trying to stash young guys with a couple of keepers to eventually be a really good team. But then maybe you could get into who would be second between Amin, OO, and Miles Turner. But I think Maxey is the option regardless here.
Yeah. I think just on the surface, to me, this is Maxey pretty comfortably.
Yep. Dynasty outlook on Marcus Sasser. Seems like he thrives for Detroit when he's given minutes. Let me pull up where I have him ranked real quick. I have him at 164. He's got a ton of upside. He's shown a lot as a scorer and a passer and a shooter this season as a rookie. He is 23 already, which I think if he was 19 and done what he has done in the minutes, then maybe a little higher. But I like his game. I think in Detroit it is kind of iffy because Cade and Jaden Ivey are also there. So what does Sasser's role look like in the next few seasons unless he is moved elsewhere? I like him as a player. I don't think he's a guaranteed surefire star one day. But I think he definitely has that kind of upside.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, in Detroit, I don't. There's upside there, but I'm not super high on him to the point where I think you want to be prioritizing him. I think we have seen flashes from him, but yeah, I'm not sure he ever gets to be anything better than a top 100 player.
Yep. All right, drop 2 of these players to bring Kawhi and Jaren Jackson off the IR. Scoot, Keontae George, Paul Reed, Trey Mann. That's a tough one, 12-team, I'm assuming just 9-cat league. I think my gut's saying to drop Keontae George and Paul Reed and keep Scoot and Trey Mann. But I think it also could kind of depend on what categories you need. I think I would definitely not drop Scoot, but if you kind of need some more center stats or just centers, then maybe Paul Reed over Trey Mann. But I think I'd rather keep Scoot and Trey Mann.
Yeah, Keontae is probably the easiest one to drop here. And then you could make a case for either of or any of those 3, Scoot, Paul Reed, Trey Mann. But yeah, I think Scoot is going to be big down the stretch, as long as you can handle some efficiency issues, because he's going to shoot a lot of shots. And then, Paul Reed, Trey Mann, again with LaMelo. If we knew LaMelo was coming back, it'd probably be Trey Mann, but we don't. Whereas we do know that Embiid is not coming back anytime soon. So Paul Reed's probably a little bit safer long term. And it would come down a little bit there to what you need, as you said. Do you need big man stats or do you need guard stats?
Yeah, and I think, honestly, Scoot, Keontae George, and Trey Mann could all have, like, efficiency issues, shooting percentage issues. I mean, Trey Mann has been pretty good in his first few games with Charlotte. Aside the first one, he wasn't great, and the second two have been better. But in the past, like his past 2 seasons for the Thunder, he shot 39.3% from the floor. So, I mean, I think all 3 of those guys could potentially have field goal percentage issues. So it's just, it's about what you need or what you can deal with, really.
Yeah.
All right. How confident are we in Marvin Bagley's role for the rest of this season? Well, I feel confident that he's going to continue to start. And I think that's probably the only guarantee I can make. I feel pretty good about him being a productive fantasy player for the rest of the season. Simply because they don't have many other options, if any, like good ones. So it kind of forces him to play big minutes. And he has had some good games with the Wizards when he's been given big minutes. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I'm confident in his role. Like, I think he'll start, he'll play big minutes, he'll get you close to a double-double, I want to say, sort of 8 or 9 rebounds, 15 points, maybe a few more. Doesn't get a lot of defensive stuff. His ceiling is not that high, but he'll be playing enough that he needs to be rostered top 100-ish rest of season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he missed a few games with injury, came back, played 15 minutes. And I remember there was people freaking out about it. And then the next 2 games, he played 28 minutes and had 12 points, 13 boards. And the next game, he had 14 points and 10 boards in 30 minutes. So I think, just around a double-double is probably what you're going to get from him. So nothing exciting, but you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
In what order should these guys be rostered rest of the season? Trey Mann, Nick Richards, Dante DiVincenzo, Marvin Bagley, Buddy Hield, and Ben Simmons. I think the easy one to me is Nick Richards last, and maybe you totally disagree, but I think to me, Nick Richards last is probably the one I feel best about, and maybe Buddy Hield first is the one I feel pretty good about that.
I think I'd probably have Simmons last.
Okay.
Only just because of the missed games and things like that. I think if we were looking at purely what they can do on the court and their value, it wouldn't be. But I think I'd have Simmons last. I'd probably have... I think Richards has to be rostered, but you'd have him towards the back because he doesn't do a lot. He's playing good minutes, but first, I don't know, I might have DiVincenzo first, maybe. I think I'd have DiVincenzo, Buddy Hield, Trey Mann, Bagley, Richards, Simmons.
Yeah, I think I would go Hield, DiVincenzo, Mann, Bagley, Simmons, Richards, more so Simmons over Richards because of the upside. But I mean, obviously, like it's pretty close there.
Yeah.
Any updates on Jimmy Butler? I think the last report that I'm able to find is that he was going to be out through the All-Star break. I haven't seen anything else saying that he would be definitely back after the All-Star break. And since it was like a personal issue, a death in the family, I think they're going to give him as much time as he needs. I don't think that there hasn't been any update that I've seen, and I don't know that there necessarily will be until, let's see, do they play on, I think they play on Thursday. Let me see if I can pull that up.
They probably
play on They play on Friday, so we may
On
not
Friday.
get an update until potentially tomorrow. But I mean, there's a chance that they don't give us really any sort of update until Thursday at 5 p.m. and they drop the injury report. So we may just not know.
Yeah, I think he probably comes back. Given this wasn't an injury, that sort of thing, they probably just said, look, take the rest of these games off, take the eight days over the All-Star break, and then let us know. But I don't know. I feel like I'm reasonably confident he'll be back for that first game. Beyond that, I don't know, because he'll probably get injured or something. But yeah, I think there's a decent chance that he returns this week.
Yeah, and I think this will be the last one. Right, probably won't be a quick one. That's why I think it'll end up being the last one. But last question, more real life related. We've seen teams spend extremely high picks on G League Ignite players and it not panning out to this point. Ron Holland is falling on the board, one of two. I didn't get the second message, so. We will just, I guess, kind of briefly discuss what G League Ignite players, some of them have been drafted kind of early, such as I just kind of going over the past few seasons.
Well, Scoot's the obvious one, and Jalen Green. I think they're the two that jump in.
Jonathan Kuminga was also drafted pretty early. Dyson Daniels was G League Ignite, correct? Yes, he was G League. So I think it might just be more individual cases as opposed to it not being a good path to the league. And I think Kuminga has been playing better recently, like really starting to show kind of his upside, why he was drafted where he was. Scoot, yes, it's been a struggle so far, but like I'm very confident that he's going to end up being an elite basketball player. I think Jalen Green is one of the players that maybe makes people kind of question the decision there. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's something that we need more of an analysis on, more examples of before we can really give a really good conclusion, and like multiple seasons of these players in the league, because I don't think this being Jalen Green's third season, it's enough to totally draw a conclusion on him. So I don't know. Do you have any G League Ignite thoughts?
Look, I mean, it's obviously an interesting path, and it's different to going through college or Europe, or I mean, even coming through Australia. We get players coming over here now and playing in the National League, and we've got who's the projected number 2 next year? Is it Saar?
There really isn't like
he could be.
He's up there.
He's up there.
Yeah.
And look, he's been pretty good over here playing as well. So, yeah, I guess there's pros and cons to all of the paths, depending which one you take. And I guess if you look at the G League, the pro is that it's very professional. It almost mirrors the NBA franchise that they're attached to. And you're on the road, you're traveling, playing a few games against bigger bodies. So that is because you're playing against guys that are trying to get into the NBA as well, whereas college you're obviously not. The downside, I guess, is that you're playing against guys who are trying to get in the NBA and can't, and they can't for a reason, and that's because they're not good enough. So someone like Scoot, if he sort of came into the league and people said he's NBA ready, which physically he is, he's amazing physically, and we're seeing it now. Like he is starting to figure out the pace of the game and how he fits and that sort of thing. But the same could be said about college. You're playing against guys that are never going to make the NBA. So, look, there's pros and cons. And as you said, I don't think we've got a big enough sample size yet of whether it's a successful path or not successful. But there is talk about it. I've heard it on podcasts about maybe this isn't the best way. And so maybe some of their prospects are going to fall down draft boards a little bit for the next season or two until we see, until they prove themselves, I suppose.
Yeah, I think I was listening to a podcast talking about Buzelis, who's there right now with Ron Holland. And I think it was just like the idea that, yes, they're going up against players that aren't playing in the NBA and potentially, like, partially for a reason, but they're guys that are also trying to put food on their table with basketball. So they're playing probably harder, even though I think my understanding of the G League is less defense than what should be, or less team basketball, because everybody's trying to put their I guess get to the NBA, so they're trying to shine a little bit. But I actually haven't watched enough G League games to really give a good understanding of that. But I think it's just a different experience. So yeah, I think it is something that, playing against pros, I have to imagine is better than playing against college players. But I think it could also just be individual cases of these players just not panning out the way that maybe we were expecting them to. So yeah, I think we'll have a better idea within like 5 years.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
And then real quick with this, would you trade Jaren Jackson Jr. for and Cat for Sabonis in a 10-team 9-cat league with the idea that Jaren Jackson might get shut down?
Ooh.
Oh, and then with this, I can ask the other guy to add in either Bam or Evan Mobley worth a shot. I think that adding in Bam or Evan Mobley changes the idea of the trade a lot, because giving up Cat and maybe a handful of games of Jaren Jackson Jr. at least is a lot to give up for just Sabonis. But if you're getting back Bam or Evan Mobley, I think that changes things.
Yeah, I think it does. I think Sabonis is the best player there in that deal. But yeah, JJJ and Cat is a lot to give up. But yeah, look, if you could get Mobley and Sabonis, I'd absolutely do that, because I think Mobley is potentially the second best player in that deal. So you'd be getting the best two players. And even Bam has been pretty good this season. So yeah, if that's the trade, what you've got there, probably not. But if you could get a second piece to come back, then yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is just a little bit too much to give up for Sabonis. But even if you don't get a guy quite as good as a Bam or an Evan Mobley back, I think getting a second piece back that is pretty solid is enough to make that a little bit more even for me.
Yeah.
And then I guess real quick gut reaction, trade Fox for Wemby or Scotty Barnes. Personally, I think I would do either of those pretty easily.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode of our weekly Q&A. Kingy, what do you have coming up content-wise that people can check out?
We've got our usual Thursday night show tomorrow, Thursday night Australian time, very early morning US time, with, I think I've got Matty G and DMAC, NBA Fantasy Bible, coming on. So we'll be having a few beers and talking about basketball, and we should have injury news and things to talk about as well, because it'll be 12 hours before games tip off. So that should be good. Should be back on Saturday, Friday US time, with Mike Fiddle having a look at the schedule. And then I think we'll be back next week for our regular show. Well, both of our regular shows.
Yeah. Sweet. All right. And you can follow him on Twitter or X, whatever you call it, at AdamKing91. You can follow me at NoahRubin22. But that's going to do it for this episode of the weekly Q&A. Adam, thanks for joining me. And everyone, thank you for tuning in, and looking forward to answering your questions next week.